So with the Nintendo Switch 2 just around the corner, we are close to the end of an era for Nintendo, thus meaning the Nintendo Switch is almost dead. While we have a little bit more time until the Nintendo Switch 2 releases, I figured why not take a look back at the console and just kind of see as a package how great of a console it was. What I mean by this is I'm not going to be talking about games because I can go down a whole rabbit hole talking about the games on the Nintendo Switch, but I'm mostly going to be talking about just what comes in the console itself. So talk about the Joy-Cons, the build of the console itself. You know what, I might as well throw the Pro Controller in there, as well as like the menu, UI, stuff like that. So just kind of the basic stuff that when you get a Switch for the first time, what does it come with, and just giving my thoughts on what I think about those things. With that being said, I'm the biggest nub on YouTube, Christendo, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure you like it and subscribe to the channel as it helps me out a ton. In the last video, we got a total of 13 new subscribers to the channel, so let's see if we can top that with this one. While you're at it, if you want to talk to me and others about all things Nintendo, consider joining the Chris Discord server. The link's down in the description. Now, I think it's only appropriate for us to first talk about the console itself, so with that, take it away, Chris.
Thank you, Webcam Chris. Unfortunately, when it comes to this, I don't have my original Switch because back in 2022, I believe it was, I sold it to a friend so I can get the Switch OLED. But you know what? I kept the Switch OLED box. I've had this thing since 2022, and I figured, you know what? We might as well just like imagine that we're doing like a complete unboxing here. So in here, we have the Joy-Cons and the tablet, and obviously, if I can open this up, there we go. Look at that. We got Joy-Cons and then the tablet's right there. But you know what? Since I have the Joy-Cons anyways, let's start off with talking about the Joy-Cons. So when it comes to the Switch Joy-Cons, they're not bad controllers. Honestly, I think that they're amongst one of the best. They kind of take a little bit of inspiration from kind of all over Nintendo's legacy, where it has the motion controls of a Wiimote, but also has a traditional button layout, just kind of like literally every other Nintendo controller besides the Wiimote. So I think that as a whole, the Joy-Cons aren't bad controllers. My only problems with these things, which thankfully when it comes to Switch 2 for one of them, is the size of them. I feel like that in my hand, they're a little small. Like if you see here, I mean, maybe my hands aren't a good example. I got tiny hands, but they are pretty small. So if you're holding onto them for a long period of time, they're not super comfortable. But thankfully with Switch 2, that got fixed. But my other big problem is Joy-Con drift. I've never had Joy-Con drift personally, but Joy-Con drift is a huge thing that people experience on the Switch, where their Joy-Cons would stop working properly a couple months after getting the console, so they'd have to get new ones. Hopefully with Switch 2, we don't have to experience that again. But as a whole, I honestly think that the Joy-Cons are pretty good controllers. Besides the size and Joy-Con drift, these are great. On the topic of the Joy-Con, I might as well talk about the Joy-Con grip. Yeah, this is just a big old piece of plastic. Obviously, if you've used the Nintendo Switch before, you know that this just slides in, just like that. Whoa, kind of crazy. But you know what? For being a big clunky piece of plastic, this honestly works well. Obviously, when it comes to the Switch, I prefer the Pro Controller, which we'll talk about in a second. But if you're getting this out of the box and you don't get a Pro Controller, honestly, the Joy-Con grip is pretty comfortable. It kind of helps fix the problem of the Joy-Cons feeling too small, because when you're holding just one in your hand, it just kind of feels pretty small, but when they're spaced out like this, it feels a bit better. Still a bit small, but I don't really have any problems with the Joy-Con grip. It's functional, it does what it needs to. Enough said. Now we can talk about the Pro Controller, and honestly, this thing is a beast. When it comes to Nintendo controllers, I think that this is easily a contender for one of the best ones. The GameCube controller is a close second, I feel, but this one is great. My only problem with this thing is that the D-pad is just kind of weird. I think what it is just like how the Joy-Con has buttons for the D-pad, it's like that, but instead of it just being individual buttons, it's a D-pad. So it really isn't just a D-pad. It's 4 different buttons disguised as a D-pad. And that just kind of drives me nuts. So let's say that you're trying to push up, but like your finger is a little bit to the left. It might register the left because like you're clicking the button a little to the left. So it's gonna like push down on this one right here. And because of that, you might have a misinput, and that's just kind of annoying. But outside of that, honestly, I think that the build of this thing is great. It has a great battery life. I think it's around 40 hours on a full charge, and I've never had a problem with this thing dying on me. So overall, I want to say that this is a great controller, probably one of the best on the market, and hopefully with the Switch 2 Pro Controller, it just gets even better. Now we can talk about the console itself. Honestly, I really like how this console feels. It's not too big, it's not too small. It's like just the perfect size. It's not too thick where it's like really clunky to hold. And at least with the OLED screen, it looks great. It has a great screen. Obviously, it's in 720p, whereas with the Switch 2, we'll have 1080p, but we're not going to compare those two here. That's not what we're doing here today. But overall, this build is great. It has a nice clean build. It feels sturdy. The rail system is the only problem I have with this. I know that some people, after they got their Switch, after using it for a good amount of time, the rail system stops working, but I personally never had a problem with it. If you're careful enough with your console, you'll never have that problem. Maybe you will, I don't know. I've never had that problem. But yeah, as a quality build, I think this thing is great. Like I said, it feels sturdy. It doesn't feel like it's ever going to break on you. So just in general, the Switch has a great design. And I'm honestly super happy that with the Switch 2, they stuck to a very similar design, but just tweaked it a little bit to make it better.
So now that we talked about the hardware, we could go a little bit into more of the software side, but not talk about the games. Let's talk about the menu of the Switch. Honestly, as we're all aware, this menu is pretty simple, but that's not bad at all. Honestly, there's nothing wrong with there being a more simple UI. It really does make it easy for you to be able to find your games and be able to figure out what you want to play and make the experience a lot quicker. But at the very least, I know that a lot of people have said this, but Nintendo should have at least added optional menu music. That would have made this feel a lot more lively. Even if it's not on by default, just having the option to have menu music would be really nice. But overall, I think that this menu is pretty clean. It's simple, and I guess you could say it's boring, but it does what it needs to. It makes it so that games are easily accessible and that you can access what you need to pretty quick. Now, obviously, on the menu, we have a good couple options here. Obviously, we can select games, as you can see here on the screen. And we also have our profiles up here, you know, just the little icons up here. On the bottom, you can notice that we have different options for different apps, I guess you could say, like the Switch Online. We have the News app, the eShop, Album, Game Share, which is going to finally be usable when the Switch 2 comes out, the controllers, virtual game cards, settings. And I think that this next one is also new, just like the virtual game cards and the Game Share. There is a sleep mode button. I think that this was just added in the version 20 Switch update, which is pretty nice because before you would have to hold down the home button to get to this menu here, where you would be able to get to sleep mode. But just having an option to just push the button, it's kind of nice. It makes it a lot more convenient. I'm glad that Nintendo added this, even though it's at the tail end of the Switch's life, but it's just pretty nice. And if you didn't hear it over my voice, because I know I'm quite a yapper, each of these icons make a noise when you click on them. So you know what? We're just gonna go in, we're gonna click all these, and just show you what the noises for all these are. When it comes to these noises, I like it. It adds a good bit of personality to this kind of basic menu where there's no special noises and there's none of that stuff. So just having little sounds on here when you click something, it's pretty nice. When it comes to this news one here, it makes a noise that I want to say kind of sounds like a me talking, like a me noise, not talking, but like a me noise. Like, listen here. Like, I can't wrap my head around what exactly that sound is. I've heard it before, I just don't know where. So if you know where it is from, then please let me know. But these apps themselves, we might as well just go into them. Let's start off with the Switch Online one. And with this app, it shows you how long you've been a subscriber for. In my case, I've been a subscriber for 5 years, 4 months, 16 days. And also just kind of gives you rundowns of things. It is pretty laggy, as you could tell. I don't know if you can really tell, but it is pretty laggy. It takes a moment for everything to show up, and it's kind of annoying, but whatever, we're used to this when it comes to the Switch at this point. Also shows your backup save data, which is kind of nice that you can see what games you have backup save data for. Special offers like, you know, exclusive Switch Online stuff. When it comes to this app, I guess the big thing really is just being able to buy different icons for your profile, which is kind of nice, I guess, but there just really isn't a lot here. It is kind of cool that in the little section with the retro games, you're kind of able to see when things were released. It's kind of nice to have that. And you're able to kind of cycle through what games and what year, what day they were released, which is kind of cool. But outside of that, this app doesn't really have much going for it. It's fine enough. It does what it needs to, but I don't know. It's not really anything super worth talking about. Next up is the news, and as you could guess, it just kind of gives you news on what's going on with the Nintendo Switch, what's going on with Nintendo. And yeah, there's not really a lot going on. You're able to find channels that you want to follow. For me, I think I'm following the Minecraft and the Nintendo and stuff because, you know, I'm a Nintendo YouTuber. At one point, I was also making Minecraft content, and just getting Minecraft news on the Switch was kind of nice. Outside of that, I don't really follow a lot of the Nintendo stuff, or just the Nintendo news stuff. It's just kind of there, just like the Nintendo Switch Online icon. But it is kind of nice because from time to time, if you say miss a Nintendo Direct or just want more information on something, you'll be able to find it here. So it's kind of nice, but at the same time, it is just kind of here. Next up is the eShop, and honestly, we can go on a whole tangent about it. We gotta sign in first, though. I do like that they changed the color from orange to red. I know a lot of people are nostalgic for the orange, but at the same time, I think that the red is a bit of a cleaner look. It's a nice, cleaner color, in my opinion, but I do get where people are coming from when they say that they prefer the orange, but in order to proceed, I gotta sign in. You guys are not seeing my information, so let's cut to the next part. All right, we're signed in now, and as you have probably come to notice, the eShop is pretty slow. It takes a long time for things to load. Oh, yep, okay, let's not go on that section. Let's go into great deals. Maybe there's something good there. Yeah, this thing is slow. It's basically unusable. It's kind of a monstrosity. Like, there's not really any good way to find games that you want because there's no, like, recommended page. It literally just shows you what games are selling the best, which, of course, you know, Mario Kart's going to be up there. I'm surprised that Mario Party Jamboree is above it, though. But obviously, you got your best sellers, your great deals, your recent releases, which the recent releases section is always just full of garbage, as you already saw before. And there's not really a way to filter out those bad games, like the AI games, those games with anime women that I can't say the name of, or else I'll get demonetized, and I don't want to be demonetized. Yeah, the eShop, I really hope that with Switch 2, they go in and fix that. It looks like that is going to at least run better. I really hope that there's a better way to filter things. Everyone has talked about the eShop to death on all the problems and stuff, so I'm not going to bore you with all the details. Just know that when it comes to the Switch, the eShop is probably the low point for the Switch because it's just full of garbage, and unless you know of a specific game you want, you're not really able to find anything else. So, yeah, this thing kind of sucks. Honestly, the next few aren't super big. Obviously, the album has all of your screenshots and stuff. I don't know why I have so many screenshots of the Ouija, but as you can see, let's just open this up. The quality of the image isn't the greatest. It's not horrible, but it really isn't great. If we go into a video here, it's probably gonna be loud when I go into a video. Let me see if I can find one that would be kind of quiet. But as you can see here, the video quality isn't super great. It's pretty low resolution. It really is just kind of like, I wish that it was better. It's not the biggest deal, but if you want to share this with people, it kind of sucks that it is really low resolution. So yeah, there you go. You also got to see me win a minigame in Mario Party. That's pretty cool. Anyways, yeah, there's not really much to talk about here. It does what it needs to. You're able to capture stuff. You're able to take videos that are only 30 seconds long. Hopefully with Switch 2, they increase the amount of time you're able to record for, and hopefully the quality of the video and image are a lot better. Anyways, let's move on to Game Share, which obviously, right now, we're not able to do anything with because the Switch 2 isn't out yet. We're not able to join the Game Share because the Switch 2 isn't out yet, so we're not able to play games that are being shared by a Switch 2 user because it's not out yet. Anyways, what's the next one? Controllers. There's not really anything to talk about here. Really just being able to change the order of who's what player, finding controllers, tells you how to pair new controllers. Yeah, nothing here. Virtual game cards, I haven't used this yet. I haven't really used my Switch, if I'm being honest, since the new update dropped. But yeah, this is just kind of a fancier way to showcase your digital games and be able to share them with people. That's cool, I guess. I don't have like a Nintendo Switch account that is connected to a family or whatever, so I can't really use this unless I do that. This isn't really useful to me. It's cool enough though. Obviously settings, there's a lot in here that we could probably talk about. Obviously when it comes to this, the first thing that comes to mind is the themes. There's no themes on this thing. Basic black and basic white, that blinds me, so I'm gonna stick to basic black. But just the fact that these are the only themes we have on the Switch, 8 years into the console's life, and they have a whole themes menu. What are you doing, Nintendo? Get better with Switch 2. And the only other thing worth noting here is the Mii. Like, why is it in the settings? Why is it not just an app? It'd be nice if it could become an app, but I don't think it is. I think it is confirmed to be in the settings as well for Switch 2, which kind of sucks because going in here to go in and create a Mii, it's just a whole process. You got to go into the settings, you got to go scroll down until you find Mii, and then there's the Mii, and then you can create and edit. And speaking of the Mii creator, as you can tell, there's no music here. It's just kind of a void of nothingness, just like the rest of the menu with the Switch. So it's kind of boring as well. but whatever. We're kind of used to that with the Switch. And then one more thing is under the software tab, you can see all your games, but there's no folders, which is like, why don't we have folders? Nintendo decided, what if we do groups instead? I only have a group with retro games because it would be nice to be able to get them easier if I need to get footage or something. So it's nice to have these here, but I haven't really used groups much. It's nice that you're able to create groups, but it would be nice if, say, you're on this normal page here, you're able to open up a group, or you're able to open up a folder that has the games that you want to play, or just games in general. Like, let's say you want to put your Mario games in a folder. You can just open up that folder, scroll through them, and find the game that you want instead of having to go through all this. Oh, it's not on your normal page. Well, gotta go to all software, and then you gotta scroll down and find it in here somewhere. Yeah, I don't have a lot of games on here because, like I said, I did give my Switch to a friend, or I sold my Switch to a friend a couple years ago, and I haven't really reinstalled a lot of the games that I don't play that I had on that Switch, so there's not a lot here. But it is nice that there is at least a way to store your games into groups. That's nice that Nintendo did that, but at the same time, folders would have been nice on the main menu. But yeah, that's the Switch OS basically in a nutshell. There might have been a couple things I missed here, but I think I was able to cover everything here and kind of give my thoughts on everything that the Switch just offers out of the box. Not in terms of games and stuff. But with that said, let's cut back to webcam Chris to finish off this video, I guess. But yeah, with that kind of wraps up my thoughts about the Nintendo Switch. Just kind of giving a little insight on just what I kind of think about the Switch, and just kind of what it does right, what it does wrong, and just kind of what I hope improves with the Switch 2. I hope I was able to give a good enough review as to what I thought on this console. In all honesty, even though I was pretty harsh with the Switch in some areas like the eShop and the themes and stuff like that, at the end of the day, I really love the Switch. It's probably one of my favorite video game consoles of all time. Just following Nintendo throughout this entire generation was just such a great time for me. It was a lot of fun from beginning to end. And the fact that the Switch is basically over at this point is honestly bittersweet. I'm excited for the Switch 2, but at the same time, I'm gonna miss the times of the Switch. But with that, I'm really excited for the Nintendo Switch 2. I might as well announce it here in this video. When the Switch 2 comes out, I plan to do a 24-hour stream where I just experience the Switch 2 for a whole day straight. And with that, I really hope that you guys join me on that journey. To round off though, overall, the Switch was a great package. It had a lot of great things going for it. It had great controllers that, while being pretty small and having the possibility of drifting, were still great overall. The Pro Controller, while having a pretty bad D-pad, was still probably one of the best video game controllers of all time. And the UI, while being kind of simple and just lacking some of that personality that previous Nintendo consoles had, is still really functional. And while I do wish that we had things like more themes and menu music, at the end of the day, it does its job of letting you get into games pretty quick. All in all, the Nintendo Switch is a really great console, and I'm just happy that with the Switch 2, they decided to take the foundation that the Switch laid and just build upon it, because honestly, that's all they had to do. With that being said though, that's all I have for this video, but if you want to see another video by me, there's a video on screen now where I rank all the Mario renders in every Mario Kart game, and while it sounds like a pretty goofy video on the surface, I think you'll enjoy that. With that being said though, I'm the biggest nub on YouTube, Chris signing off, and as always, goodbye, Nub Nation.